Ever see a statistic that seems impressive but feels a little, I don't know, off?
Mm.
Like you've got a spam filter
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it boasts this 99% accuracy rate, but somehow
Yeah.
it still seems to miss those junk emails.
Yeah.
We're doing a deep dive today into a fascinating paper by Gurl Kenbeck
Okay.
that really exposes this hidden flaw in how we tend to measure
Yeah.
success, especially in the world of binary classification.
Right. Right.
And it's called the accuracy barrier,
Mm-hmm.
or ACCBAR.
Okay.
And it might just change the way you look at data forever.
What's so interesting about Canbeck's work
Yeah.
is that he's highlighting a problem that I think most of us probably haven't even considered before, right? We kind of take it for granted when
Yeah.
we see a metric like accuracy. We assume that that's telling us the whole story.
Right, we just look at the number and that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we don't always dig deeper and understand the context, right?
So it's not enough to just look at the number, we have to go deeper.
Exactly. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine a rare disease
Right.
that only affects, say, 1% of the population.
1%, okay.
A test that always says negative
Mhm.
would still have a 99% accuracy rate,
Practically, yeah.
but it would be completely useless
Yeah.
for actually identifying the people who need help.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Okay, so how does this accuracy barrier, this ACCBR, how does that fit into this?
So ACCBR is like a warning sign, right, for
Okay.
when those impressive accuracy numbers might be misleading. It essentially calculates how close a classifier's performance is to just always guessing the most common outcome.
Oh, so like in the example with the disease,
Exactly. Like,
it's always just defaulting to negative.
it's like our flawed disease test.
Okay, so if the classifier is basically just echoing the majority,
Yeah,
ACCBR is sort of waving a red flag and saying,
Yeah.
hold on a second.
precisely.
Look a little deeper here.
Yeah, and Canbeck even went a step further and developed these 5 different categories for ACCBR.
Okay.
Over, close, very close, hit, and under, to kind of give you a clearer picture of how reliable an accuracy score really is. Almost like a rating system for data.
That's clever.
Yeah.
So instead of just having a single number,
Right.
you've got these categories now.
Exactly.
But did Canbeck just kind of come up with this idea? Or did he actually test it out?
So he didn't just stop at theory.
Okay.
Good. He actually put it to the test.
Okay.
He used ACCBAR to analyze 28 research papers
Okay.
on Android malware detection,
Okay.
all of which relied very heavily on plain accuracy as a key metric.
Okay, so they were just looking at that one number.
Yeah, pretty
Right.
much. And the results were pretty shocking.
Okay, I have to know what happened.
Well, the rankings of those papers were completely shaken up
Right.
when viewed through the lens of ACCBAR.
Wow.
Some of the top performers, based on accuracy alone,
Yeah.
plummeted in the rankings because ACCBR revealed they were essentially mimicking that always negative model we talked about.
Oh, wow.
They were just really good at spotting the most common cases, not necessarily the most dangerous ones.
So even though on paper it looked like they were doing a good job,
Exactly.
ACCBR revealed that it wasn't really the whole story.
Yeah, they were essentially getting a free pass just because they had that flashy accuracy number attached to them.
Wow. That's kind of scary, actually.
It is kind of scary.
If you think about it, because it's like these studies were getting all this attention.
Yeah.
Just because they had a good marketing campaign, so to speak.
Yeah, and meanwhile, you've got these other studies
Yeah.
that were potentially doing something a lot more effective,
Yeah.
but they were getting overshadowed because their accuracy numbers weren't as flashy.
Right. They were being more nuanced in their approach,
Exact.
but it wasn't being recognized.
Yeah, and you know what Canbeck calls that?
What's that?
Publication bias.
Publication bias.
Yeah, where studies with certain types of results
Okay.
are just more likely to get published.
Just because they look better.
Exactly, regardless of their actual significance.
So it's almost like a vicious cycle
It is a bit of a vicious cycle.
where researchers feel this pressure to chase these really impressive accuracy scores
Yeah,
because that's what gets attention,
right.
even if it's not really telling the whole story.
And it can really stifle innovation because if everyone's so focused on this one narrow metric,
Yeah.
they're not exploring other potentially more valuable approaches. Think of ACCBR as a kind of safety check for accuracy claims.
Nope.
The paper's author, Gurl Kenbeck, basically says, hey, don't just look at the accuracy number in isolation, compare it to something.
Makes sense. So what are we comparing it to?
That's where the null error rate or no information rate comes in. Imagine you had absolutely zero information and just had to guess the most likely outcome every time. ACCBR compares a system's performance to that baseline.
So if the AI is only slightly more accurate than me just blindly guessing no disease all the time, that's a problem.
Exactly. It suggests the system might not be as clever as that initial accuracy percentage led you to believe.
So it's like if the fancy AI is barely doing better than me just flipping a coin,
Yeah.
that's a sign something's fishy, right? ACCBR is clearly a game changer. But how does this all relate to me? I mean, I'm not building malware detectors or anything. So ACCBR is super useful for researchers, but what about the rest of us? I mean, I'm not building malware detectors or anything. How does this impact me in the real world?
That's a great question, and it gets at the heart of why understanding these concepts is so important. Think of it this way. You encounter AI-powered systems every day, probably more than you realize.
Oh, totally. From those spam filters rescuing my inbox to those personalized recommendations popping up while I'm shopping online, they're everywhere.
Exactly, and those are just the obvious ones. AI is increasingly being used in healthcare, finance, even criminal justice. Knowing how to evaluate those systems to see beyond the surface is crucial for all of us, not just the experts.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So it's like if I read a headline about a new medical diagnosis tool that's 98% accurate, I shouldn't just blindly accept that.
You got it. Ask yourself, 98% accurate compared to what? What's the baseline? Is it actually doing something remarkable, or would flipping a coin give you almost the same result?
So ACCBR is like a secret decoder ring for navigating this increasingly AI-driven world.
I love that analogy. It helps us cut through the hype and make more informed decisions. Because here's the thing, while this paper focused on mobile malware detection, the lessons apply broadly.
So whether I'm reading about self-driving cars or the latest facial recognition software, the same principles apply.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to ask those tough questions to dig a little deeper. And hey,
Yeah.
something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
That's advice we can all use, no matter what the algorithm throws our way. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me, and with you, of course. It's like we had our own little accuracy boosting session today, wouldn't you say?
I'd say so. Remember, knowledge is power, especially in the age of AI.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought: what other areas of your life might benefit from a little ACCBAR-inspired scrutiny? Think about it, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.